Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society and introducing the Master Sword as itself. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I'm joined, as I'm always joined, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. Mark, how's it going? Tell me how it's going, but then I have a follow-up question. Okay, great. We are recording it at my place right now. I want you to just pause for a second and let me know what you hear. The answer is nothing. We had a wall clock in here that ticked before, just a tick, tick, tick. It has been replaced with a non-ticking analog clock.
That's so. I mean, first of all, great color coordination.
Thank you.
Second of all, like 2 weeks ago, I was in here. I was looking at the old clock.
Yeah, old clock broke,
and I thought it was a new clock.
That's right.
And now you have a new clock, and I didn't even notice.
You didn't even notice because it wasn't making any sound.
That's
Mark.
right. That's right.
But so that's our the clock that we had up there before was a ticker. It tick 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 tick. But it also sort of stopped working. But I'd been thinking for a long time, why don't I just? I was thinking when that clock breaks, I'll replace it with one that doesn't have a ticking noise. And I don't know why I had that artificial restraint on. I'm so much happier when it doesn't make a clicking noise. It's a $20 clock. It's not, there's no reason to be no, only when it comes time to replacing it. You just go ahead and replace it.
I've got to tell you, I did not know that your old one clicked.
It did. It made a little noise. If you were sitting in here and there was no other sound happening, it would start to sound like it was very loud.
Interesting.
That kind of thing you would only notice when you're out here at 3 o'clock in the morning and you can't sleep. You know what I mean?
Oh, sure.
Where you're this sound, this echoing boom.
Which would be the most horrible.
Tick,
It's
tick,
3 o'clock
tick.
in the morning.
Yeah.
You can't sleep, and yet the only sound is reminding you of the time
Yeah,
and the passing of time
That's right.
and how closer you are to having to wake up.
And now there's nothing to remind me of that, baby. Just the smooth whir of the clock going around and making no sound at all. I love it. Mark, speaking of things I love, we've got a Patreon. If people would like to support the podcast, they can do so by going to patreon.com/Nintendo Cartridge Society. We are doing some fun stuff over there. We are in the middle of a mini-series that we're calling NCS Detective Club, where we are reviewing the great detective stories of television history. If you subscribe to us at the 8-bit or 16-bit tier, you can check out those episodes that we're putting out once a month. And we are just about to put out a new one.
That's right. And we're going to be talking about Psych, which will be very exciting because I've never seen it before.
Yeah, this is both of our introductions to the series. So that's all very exciting. Also, we have a Discord. If you would like to get in on the Discord, all you got to do is email us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com, and we will send you an invitation. That is where we are hanging out basically all the time, talking about Nintendo stuff. If there is news in Nintendo, you better believe that there is already a discussion of it happening there. So come on in, join the discussion. Everyone is real nice, real fun. Okay, Mark, let's dig into it. We've got 10 minutes of Tears of the Kingdom gameplay to discuss. Let's talk about it. The presentation. Tuesday morning, 7 a.m. Eiji Aonuma hosts 10 minutes of gameplay of Tears of the Kingdom. Heavily edited, of course, right? He's clearly just demonstrating the things that he wants to demonstrate. It's not a free roaming kind of experience. Very scripted, very demonstrative of the mechanics of the game. Tell me your overall thoughts. Tell me, did you wake up to watch this thing more or less live? It wasn't streaming, right? They just posted a video.
Yeah, I think so.
Tell me what your ritual was with it.
Yeah, so I ended up not getting up at 7 a.m. So
Whoa.
I watched it. I watched it like at 8, a little bit later. But what about you? Were you up at 7?
I'm always up at 7.
Oh, okay.
It's I usually get out of bed at like 6.
Oof, no,
So
no, thank you.
no, but yes, I do.
Strong pass.
I woke up a little bit earlier so I could be like up and ready because normally I'm like out the door before 7:30, and so I was like, okay, I just want to be like as soon as this thing is done, just be ready to go.
Sure, yeah.
So yeah, I watched it more or less live. It's weird to me slash like I get like a little stressed out when like there's no when there's not streaming because then there's no like video beforehand like where you can be like, okay, I know that I'm in the right place, I know I'm watching the like
Oh, so
pre-stream.
did they just
I
dropped a
think they
video?
just dropped a
Oh,
video, yeah.
interesting.
Like it was not there at 6:57, and then at 7 there was a video. Um so yeah, I watched it more or less live. Was kind of quietly delighted throughout. What was your like kind
Yeah,
of
no,
reaction to it?
I have actually watched it a couple of times and then also watched it with uh analysis videos
Sure,
of the 10
sure.
minutes and all that kind of stuff to pick up on, or to I was interested in hearing some details that kind of just like washed over me. I absolutely love Breath of the Wild, but I don't think I necessarily could have told you what the mini map looked like, in detail before, and
Right,
how
right.
necessarily like some of those elements that are different in Tears of the Kingdom had changed. um
Well, I mean, just for reference sake, like when's the last time you turned on Breath of the Wild?
yeah, I mean,
Years and years,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
the Champions Ballad for sure was
yeah,
like the last time that I have played Breath of the Wild. So, but what I really liked about this footage is how deceptively low key it is. Like, it's very matter of
yes.
fact.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Aonuma is showing some of the new abilities, which are really cool. And like I feel like what it did really well is it showed you the basic tool, and this is really something that Breath of the Wild did amazingly well. It
Right,
showed you the basic tools, um, like this new crafting ability, the new like crafting ability,
right.
the rewind ability,
Mm-hmm.
um, and
The new abilities are called recall is the rewind ability. There are sort of two crafting abilities. One is called fuse, and that's like fusing your weapons or like things in your hands with objects in the world. And then there's the ultra hand, which is where you are like actually mushing objects in the world together to build, vehicles or bridges or whatever. And that's called the ultra hand, if I didn't say that already. And then ascend, which is where you sort of become a droplet that like is propelled upwards and through objects, through any kind of like ceiling, or I guess ceiling is
yeah, and
really
we
it,
saw
yeah.
that in the 2001 like trailer.
2021.
Yes, 2000. Yeah, 2021 trailer. Um, and yeah, so what I thought was really cool about this is
Hmm.
that in the 10 minutes, it feels like we're showing you the building blocks. These are the main mechanics of the game, and that was kind of it. It was like, here are Link's new powers, possibly all of them. Very similar to the ones how we had like the runes in Breath of the Wild.
Right, the Sheikah Slate,
Yeah.
the Cryonis Magnesis.
And
Yeah.
so it's like, oh, and you got those tools super early in the game. You got them all on the Great Plateau, and then
Hmm.
you were just set free to use them how you wanted. And what I thought was really cool about this trailer is it's like, here are the tools.
Yep.
And then, and like that in of itself is really cool and impressive. But the thing that is so super exciting about that is the possibility of that tool set is potentially insane. I feel bad for the people who have to write guides for this game.
Oh yeah, no, it'll be impossible. I mean, kind of just like I don't know if you remember, but like IGN raced to get a like map up of Hyrule that had all of the Korok locations, and there was like a guide to reading their guide because like there are 900 of those things. Yeah, it's I really like what you're saying about how just really saw the tools here and not really a lot of examples of how it will ask us to apply those tools, right? Or like what sort of challenges we'll need to overcome using those tools. Which like it is very much like, reading a preview of, and this is one of the things that I was like really missing as we were talking about, like, we've seen so little of Tears of the Kingdom that, like, with Breath of the Wild, we had all of these hands-on impressions from the E3 before the game came out, where people were saying that, like, the powers were fun to use, that it felt very, like, wide open, and that you could be creative in your approach to solving puzzles. And I feel like now we have that information. We know what the new tools are, and we know that we will need to employ creativity to solve puzzles, but we have had no indication of what those puzzles actually are, or how
Right.
they're presented. It's and I loved also that we spent very little time on the ground in Hyrule. It's like the first 30 seconds maybe, and then just at the very very end. And otherwise we're up on an island, a sky
Right.
island,
And
maybe multiple. It's not clear.
yeah, it's not clear. Although I think like everything that we've seen
Mm-hmm.
in all of the previous trailers and even in this like 10 minutes of gameplay footage appears to be from the same locations in the game.
I would believe that. Yeah.
Like the same Sky Island that was shown off there is like the same Sky Island that we've seen in all the other footage.
Interesting.
And it seems like we're super it feels like everything that we've seen is, especially like gameplay wise in snippets from trailers, is really early in the game, because Aonuma, when he's playing at the beginning, when he's in Hyrule, he only has 4 hearts,
Yeah.
which is, I think Breath of the Wild you start with 3, and then once you're off the Great Plateau you have like is your first opportunity to upgrade.
Right. Well,
Or
'cause
maybe as you're on the Great Plateau you
yeah.
have one
Well,
opportunity to upgrade.
you've gotten 4 of the little orb things just
Right.
by going and collecting the different powers. So yeah, you have one upgrade at that point.
So you have 4, you leave the Great Plateau, you have 4 hearts. And I feel like can we just talk about Link's hair for a second?
Sure.
Because we've seen a lot of Link in this like tunic. It almost feels like Grecian,
Yes.
and like flowing hair, and flowing in the sense that in Breath of the Wild it's like in a ponytail. So it's possible it's the same length. It's possible it's not that Link's hair is longer. It's just not.
Oh, I think it's longer
Okay,
because
it could be.
it
Could
feels
be.
well because it also like it comes down like. And I guess you're right that could be like a function of the ponytail. This could be the exact same hairdo, but just without he loses access to a hair tie in
Right,
in the
yeah.
apocalypse.
So what to make of
Yes, what to make indeed.
of the hair and like the outfit that we've seen so much of?
Right.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Well, and it's also like another thing that they go through sort of like pains to not show to us are any other characters here, right? Like
Yeah,
we see one little Korok dude at the beginning
wearing a too big backpack.
wearing a backpack that's too big
It's
for him,
so cute.
and he has a little speech bubble that says like "I need to find my friend" or
Uh-huh.
something.
And then you see like at the stable you see 2 kids playing,
Okay.
and not in detail, but you see that
Yeah.
there are kids there, and you see that like towards the back of the stable there are some people sitting around like a fire, like a cooking area. But
Right.
you're right, like we don't we don't get much.
We don't know if any of the characters that we know from
Oh,
Breath of the
Beetle.
Wild
You
are
do
around.
see Beetle
Oh,
as
Beetle
well.
is around.
Uh-huh.
Okay, all right. But like, if there are inhabitants, like humans on these Sky Islands, we don't see them.
Uh-huh.
We see some new enemies, the like construct soldiers, or constructors, or whatever they're called. They remind me a lot of the robots in the desert of
Yes.
Skyward Sword.
Yes.
Mhm.
I was thinking the same thing, and that's what got me wondering if like, okay, with like his like Grecian tunic,
Yeah.
his long hair, you have these constructors that look very similar to the robots who had time stones
Yep.
in Skyward Sword. And Skyward Sword,
And they're like futuristic robots from the past
exactly,
of Skyward Sword.
and
yes.
it's like, okay, does and it feels, and maybe I could
Speculate
I
away,
know, I
Mark.
could totally be reading way too much into this, but it's also like I don't
You'd
know.
be the only one.
I don't know that it's coincidental that like Skyward Sword was re-released And like
Yes.
I do wonder how much of a like I don't think there's like a direct connection, but I wonder if there is more Skyward Sword connection,
Well, I
you
mean,
know?
there is the obvious connection of there are islands in the sky, and you can dive down to the world below from the islands in the sky. Like,
Right.
I mean, it's kind of a one for one. Like, here's a direct connection. But yeah, like it makes me wonder. You know, we've seen, or they Aonuma points out some like birds that are flying in the sky. But like, is it possible there are Loftwing in this game that you can fly from one island to another? Like, you
Right,
could
because he
ride
says,
horses.
"Oh, this is like one way." Because he shows
Yes.
the recall feature.
Mm-hmm.
So a stone falls to the ground, Link can get on it and do rewind to right up to the island and in the sky. And Aonuma also says, "Oh, there are other ways for you to
Yes.
like explore." Yeah, I just I don't know. I think what's really interesting is we have that the stuff from the reveal trailer from 2019 that shows Link and Zelda exploring a cave
Underground.
underground, and we've seen like additional snippets from seemingly that cutscene.
Mm-hmm.
Where Link is wearing his more traditional tunic from Breath of the Wild,
Right,
like all that
right.
kind of stuff. And it makes me it just makes me wonder where that fits into everything. Like, is that the very beginning of the game, and
Mm.
then something happens that they are separated, and Link time travels, or like
Right. Is Link somehow in the past
right?
of Hyrule? Like it's I do feel like we know so little about like the setting and story of this game. Um but yeah, I'm super excited to find out. And it's I do the like timing of this gameplay video and how little it reveals outside of just like the abilities, which we've seen all of them sort of demonstrated in the other videos before, just without knowing what they're called, or like how exactly they work, and we still only kind of know how they
Yeah, like
work,
we
right?
saw, but you're right. Like we saw the vehicle,
Right.
Link riding on that big truck thing. Then now we know. Oh, that was Ultra Hand that he used to like goop it together.
Right, and we saw Ascend before, we saw Recall before, again not with those names, but we saw those powers in motion, and what this video I think was really meant for, like for marketing purposes, was so they could tie it with the announcement of the Tears of the Kingdom OLED Switch, the Pro controller, which I pre-ordered, and the carrying case. So they had like a thing to sell and to announce, and that's largely what this like gameplay video I think was for. Like, because I don't know that it necessarily builds new excitement. I think it just like stokes the people who are already excited about
I
it.
agree, and that's why I think the marketing for this game has been really interesting, and I think some of it is like you're right, like
Mm-hmm.
Breath of the Wild. Some of it is just like this is a sequel to Breath of the Wild, and you know what Breath of the Wild is. But I do think it's really interesting how low key this presentation was, because just on the surface level you're like, oh, that's cool, but there's not anything in there that blows you away
Yes.
until you begin to think like the implications for this in solving puzzles, and
Right.
combat, and just like how everybody's experience in Breath of the Wild could be so different.
Yes.
And my gosh, what combinations are people going to be able to
No kidding.
fuse
Yeah.
together, and how different will that make your experience?
Well, especially because like not all of the combinations feel intuitive, right? Like they show like, okay, yeah, you put like a stone at the end of a rock, or a stone at the end of a stick, and it effectively becomes like a big warhammer. But there's also like you put a Keese eye on the end of an arrow, and it becomes like a homing arrow, where it's like that's not super intuitive. So like the combinations for these things are going to be, I don't know, basically endless, and we'll all be discovering the modifications that the different parts have on these things sort of in real time. And I'm sure there will be guides and stuff, but it's also just gonna be a lot of like trial and error
Yeah.
of like figuring out what works and like how you like to use those things.
Yeah. So I just think it's interesting that the marketing for this game really is like
Hmm.
takes for granted that you understand Breath of the Wild,
Yeah, I think
and like
yeah.
what Breath of the Wild offered and why it was so great. And then they can show you these like four new tools and just leave it at that. They don't have to show you the amazing ways it can be used, really. They can
Yeah.
just say like it exists, and then it's up to you to be like, oh, then the possibilities for this are just totally insane.
Yeah. What do you think this means for like the structure of the game? Or do we still know nothing about the
I
structure
feel
of this
like
game?
I have no clue.
Like we didn't see any like
We
shrines
haven't seen any
dotting the world
shrines.
map. Do we have like dungeons ahead of us? Are these sky islands like discrete little dungeons? Like we have
Yeah,
no idea, no
absolutely
clue.
no idea.
um I do think it's I just think that the possibilities here are limitless. Like there's so much of this game that we haven't seen, obviously, just from 10 minutes of gameplay. And I'm like, this made me, despite the fact that you're right, there was no like, oh my god, that looks awesome moment in this trailer. It has me kind of more excited to get my hands on the actual game.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I do you think this means we won't have a like a blowout? It feels they've been
I think this
so
is the
I
blowout.
know. I agree with you. Like I feel like I've been waiting for like the big reveal,
Right.
but this makes me feel like oh that's not happening
Right.
because
Right.
they've
Right.
been playing this game so like close to their vest, and they um have shown us the tools.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's like Breath of the Wild plus new tools, and I don't know that they want it, that we're gonna get any more.
Well, and again, we're a month and a half out from this thing, and no video game outlets have had hands on this thing. No one has like seen the game in action. Like all we've, which is, I guess isn't like totally unusual for Nintendo, right? Like they like to keep their stuff pretty well guarded. But like I don't know, for a release this big, and especially with the sort of watermark here being Breath of the Wild, that like its whole thing was 8-9 months before release, people at E3 were able to play 20 minutes of it on the Great
Yeah.
Plateau. So like, yeah, I don't like. I think they're keeping something from us, and it's got to be something exciting. There was something else I really wanted to say. I do think it is interesting that all of the you said you were checking out like analysis videos from various people. The most of the analysis videos that I have watched regarding like earlier trailers for this have leaned really hard into like the
The
Zonai.
Zonai, yes.
Zonai, this mysterious civilization, very technologically advanced, who had like sort of markers of their presence over the world of Hyrule in Breath of the Wild, who seem to be like pushed to the front and center here. We see a lot of Zonai stuff in this 10-minute gameplay video, including the word Zonai. They're like Zonai cores are being picked up by Link when he defeats like the little robot enemies. So that those people were right. Zonai stuff is everywhere. And yeah, it just it's this whole thing I find to be sort of endlessly fascinating.
Yeah, me too. I'm so excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we can't go into like blackout because we talk about everything that Nintendo is putting out. But in some ways, I kind of just want to like disappear and then like just let the game come
Yeah,
out
I
in
mean,
a
I
month
also
and a
feel
half.
like Nintendo's doing a pretty good job of that for us.
That's a
'cause
that's a great point.
they're not really showing us much.
Okay, Mark. We wanted to talk about this reveal thing, but we knew that there's 10 minutes of video and really just a couple of pieces of information. Including one that I wanted to talk about because I thought it was super neat. The one of Link's abilities is called Ultra Hand, which is the name of the like Reacher toy that Nintendo made back in the 70s. We're big fans of the sort of like pre-NES Nintendo stuff. We go nuts whenever there's an Ultra Machine, the like pitching robot thing in our favorite Rusty's Real Deal Baseball. But then for the Ultra Hand, it's a little
that's
grabber
fun.
toy to get a shout out as with the name of one of Link's abilities, and this is just like, mwah, I love it. Thank you, Nintendo. Never stop referring to your own dumb history. I love it.
Can't wait for the sequel to Tears of the Kingdom where he has a virtual boy.
Ooh, Virtual Boy Link. This is obviously a very cool little reveal for a Zelda game, but we thought we would go through and discuss our favorite like Zelda reveal moments. So sometimes these are just like little marketing beats. I think a lot of these are going to end up being like trailers or some other way that Nintendo tried to get us excited about Zelda games as they were coming out. Mark, I came up with 3 that I wanted to talk
I
about.
also have 3.
Um, I will sincerely give you the option of whether you want to go first or second in this time.
You know what? I will go first.
All right, go
And
first.
the first one I'm gonna do, I just feel like is just one of the great moments in like Nintendo game announcements,
Sure.
bar none, and it is the Twilight Princess reveal from E3 2004.
Yes, tell me about it.
Okay, so cast your mind back to a time when the Wind Waker was not like not mostly universally beloved as it is
Right.
today.
Still a contentious game.
Still a contentious game, because what people really wanted was like a dark and gritty Link.
Yes.
And so Nintendo finishes their presentation for E3 2004. You see people starting to get up from their seats, head to the doors, and Reggie Fils-Aimé, then president of Nintendo of America, is like, "Oh, we have one more thing to show you." And this is the most heavily Lord of the Rings influenced
Yes.
like Legend of Zelda trailer ever. It's not called Twilight Princess at this point, but it's just a lot. It's like footage of bokoblins riding, like horses or animals with like a setting sun behind them on
Yep.
an enormous Hyrule field. Link on on Epona with like shooting arrows. Words flash across the screen. Blades will bleed in this like kind of Elder Scrolls S type
Yeah, sure.
text. Shields will shatter, and people start, because at first you're like, it's not clear that this is a Legend of Zelda game,
Right.
and then people start like going crazy because this is what people like have wanted for a very long time. It's what they, after Majora's Mask, like going into the GameCube era,
Right.
this was kind of the Legend of Zelda game people were expecting, not the cell shaded Wind Waker.
Right. I don't know if it's on your list, but like we can just mention here the Space World 2000 like demo of Link and Ganondorf like doing battle in sort of like GameCube-esque, sort of like Smash Brothers Brawl or Melee graphics, where like it looked for a little bit like they were working on a grounded, violent, like you say, Lord of the Rings-esque Zelda game, and then they didn't do that.
And then Wind Waker came out.
And then Wind Waker came out.
And people were so mad.
Yeah.
And so this trailer plays, and
Right.
it says, like Legend of Zelda. People are going nuts, and then the on the video screen, the image of Link dissolves, and it is replaced by Shigeru Miyamoto
Yes.
holding the Master Sword and Link's shield. And then the announcer is like, "Ladies and gentlemen, Shigeru Miyamoto." And then like the screen rises, and out of the fog, Shigeru Miyamoto walks out holding the Master Sword and the shield, and people in the audience genuinely like lose their minds.
Yeah. What's so funny is this is 2004.
2004.
So I want to finish talking about this, but I want to talk about the Wind Waker reveal trailer at E3 2020 or 2002. So only 2 years earlier. There's so much less like pomp and circumstance around this reveal. But keep going if you have any more about the Twilight Princess.
Oh, basically, I was just like, if our reaction to if Stanley the Bugman showed up in
Sure, yes,
the Super Mario Brothers movie, that is people's reaction.
Because we will do backflips in our seat from a seated position. That's right.
I will run out into my lawn screaming, doing that like Curly from the Three Stooges thing,
Right,
where I'm
you
like
lay
lying
down
on the
side,
ground,
yeah.
running around in a circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's truly amazing.
Yeah.
It's one of the rare times, and I don't know if it was the intention at Nintendo. It feels unlikely, but it is one of the rare times that like Nintendo gave fans exactly what they wanted.
exactly what they asked for.
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
don't.
Exactly
It's
what they, no, no, no,
unclear
you're right.
whether it's what
It
they
is.
wanted
It's
or not.
important. It's
Yeah,
important.
yeah.
It's an important distinction. Exactly what they asked for, and it is, just it is still an amazing moment.
So I want to that is an amazing moment, but the moment that I want to talk about, I think, sort of puts that in context, because I want to talk about from 2002, the E3 2002, the Wind Waker reveal, and like there's sort of a live gameplay demonstration. Miyamoto is playing the game, and Bill Trinan is translating, um, and so there's it starts with the trailer, and it's like all stories. I forget exactly how it ends that sentence, but is then like some of them are legends, and then it shows like clips from Wind Waker, and it's the toony Link, but like the voiceover on this thing is so grimdark and so intense, and it just doesn't make like any sense. And I mean, like you can find the trailer out there, but you can also find like footage from people in the room, and like you can hear sort of like murmurs, right, of people
Oh.
being like, "Oh, okay, well, like this is like people probably like checking with each other to be like, do we know it was gonna look like this? I thought we were gonna see something else." So there's like some disquiet in the room during this trailer. Um, and so like it's just like there are all these things sort of at odds with each other. It's a new Zelda game. The voiceover is telling you that it's dark and gritty. The visuals are telling you that it's cute, and the audience is like, are we excited about this? They don't know. And so like I said, it goes into this like live play demo. Shigeru Miyamoto is on stage with a GameCube controller in his hand. And he's like playing the game on a little monitor in front of him that he clearly has a hard time seeing, and it's all being projected behind him, and Bill Trinan is translating for him live, right? And as he's playing, and he appears to just be like button mashing his way through the combat. Like it's sort of frustrating to watch him fight here, and you can hear the crowd start to turn in the game's favor when like the bokoblins like burst into that like cartoony smoke when they die. They're like, oh, and like Link like holds up something that he gets out of the chest, and like he looks cute, and it's like that like they're responding really
Oh, that's
positively
fun.
to all like the cute little details. You can feel the game winning them over in real time, but then the strangest thing happens. So Miyamoto is making his way through the Forbidden Fortress, and it's one of those parts where you need like one of the enemy. Oh yeah, this is he demonstrates like you can, when you defeat the enemies, they drop their weapons, and you can pick them up and use them. And he does it, and there's applause. People love that you can use the enemy's weapons. But so he gets to a point where he needs to break his way through like a wooden barrier using a giant sword from one of these bokoblins. And because he's having a hard time seeing it on the monitor in front of him, he's like, I lost the sword. I don't know where it went. So we would have gone through this barrier, but I don't know where the sword is. And he just stops. Like he gets stuck in his own, because he's like, it's too dark, I can't see it. And he just stops with the demonstration.
Oh man, those live it Nintendo was so smart to get away from those live
Yeah.
and not just Nintendo, like
Everyone.
all of them are
Yeah.
so like for that reason, like in 2020, when there was no E3, you and I for the month of June watched like old E3s,
Right.
and one of them was the Skyward Sword E3,
Right.
and it was a very similar demo where like there was interference with the Wiimote, and so like the motion controls weren't working right, and it was like
It was
painful
dire,
to watch. Yeah.
Well, and like the sort of like technical stuff notwithstanding, like it's weird that you're like, okay, this person who is, first of all, like the skill set that we value in them is their ability to design great games for us. Now it's like, now why don't you talk and play this video game at the same time? Which is like, you should have three different people here, right?
Right.
Like you should have one person who's like the spokesman for it, another person who's like there to like answer questions or like fill out with the more technical stuff, and then a third person playing the game, an expert at playing the game.
Yeah, it's like the GDQ model.
Yeah, exactly. But here they're just like, nope. Good luck, Miyamoto. Bill Trinan, you just got to say what he Just saying.
It's also hard, like, I mean, even in the gameplay that we saw today for Tears of the Kingdom, to find like a 30-minute slice of a game, or like
Right.
even like 10 minutes of a unedited slice of a game
Right.
that makes like a compelling, like demo for the experience.
Right, which is why we didn't like the thing that we saw this week was heavily edited. But yeah, exactly. Like why would any 10-minute portion of a game be an effective demonstration of what the game is?
That's so interesting.
Unless it's like Street Fighter, you know?
That's so interesting. I have not, like, I don't know that I've ever seen the Wind Waker like reveal before. That's really interesting.
It's really fascinating. It's also just like it's neat to go back to video from 2002 and just be like, oh yeah, this is a totally different world. Like not everyone had a video camera in their pocket all the time that they could live stream these events. Like it's interesting how much more, and even the leap to the Twilight Princess reveal, like I said, like it is just Trinan and Miyamoto on stage together. Like, and there's a GameCube on stage. There's no smoke machines. There are no like lights.
Yeah, I remember watching again for the E3 month that we did, and watching older E3 presentations, and they seemed so much more smaller, like much more intimate.
Yeah,
like it was almost like a hotel conference room instead of you're renting out
right.
the Staples Center or whatever.
Well, and there was one of those E3s that was in Santa Monica, right? That was like,
yeah.
Within this might have been it. I forget which year it was. But that like, yeah, these things were just happening in like hotel like banquet spaces and stuff like that. So
that is also completely bonkers that E3 2002,
yes,
they were doing this. The game comes out in the US anyways in like May or March or something of 2003, and then just the next E3 they're showing off Twilight Princess early, like it's just like footage, but like
and
my
we're not
goodness.
calling it Twilight Princess yet.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think they realized what had happened like to the brand of Zelda, and we're like, we need to repair it, whether or not that's actually true, because like I feel like the time has won out that Wind Waker is a better game than Twilight Princess. I think that's like the consensus,
or at least more like, I feel like more influential to the Zelda, like Toon Link has become like its own like
its own aesthetic.
Certainly
the aesthetic is better heralded than the Twilight Princess.
I also,
aesthetic.
and maybe this is not true because I know that there were gaps between games, but I also just feel like the development cycles were tighter back then.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's definitely
true. Twilight Princess wouldn't come out for another 3 years or whatever. 2 years.
Right. Well, I mean, and I'm sure we will talk about some other. Look, if you have a Breath of the Wild moment in here, the relationship to that trailer and when the game actually comes out versus when they say it's going to come out, like is absolutely absolute insanity.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Yeah, they are bad at knowing how long it takes to make these games.
Yeah, Zelda games. Yeah, Skyward Sword also delayed from its intended 2010 release date.
Yep.
But yeah, that's a great one. That's really fun that like the audience kind of like was being won over by Wind Waker in real time.
It doesn't like bear out the narrative like of the reaction to the game as it came out, but like it is interesting that people were like, "Oh, I get why this is cute," after seeing it in motion for a little bit.
Also, Wind Waker, I feel like was reviewed really well, right? It wasn't like the critical reviews; it was just like I
think they all review really well.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think so too. Skyward Sword reviewed really well.
It got a 10 from IGN.
Yeah. My next pick actually is Breath of the Wild related, but
very good.
The one that I have is, and there are so many Breath of the Wild marketing beats, like you said, because it was such a protracted development that we saw the game multiple times before it was finally ready. But the one I decided to pull was the January 2017 Nintendo Switch presentation trailer.
This is great. I have a Breath of the Wild marketing beat on my list too. It takes place 3 years earlier. Should we talk about yours first, or should we talk about mine?
Let's talk about yours first, and then we can talk about mine.
So mine is the E3 2014. It's just the Zelda Wii U reveal trailer, and it is There's no like gameplay of any kind here. With this is before we. It doesn't have a name yet, and it is mostly Eiji Aonuma talking about the sort of like roots of the Zelda series and about how there's so much exploration and discovery in the original Legend of Zelda on NES, and then since the series moved into 3D, it became harder and harder to convey a genuine sense of discovery. He uses the example of Wind Waker being like, all these islands have like a single discrete point that you enter from, and so it's several like smaller open areas, all connected by this ocean, and it gives the illusion of being a large area that you can explore and really discover stuff in, but it's a cheat, right? And he's like, so let me show you the world of Hyrule. And this is then this whole time it's really just been like him talking to a camera. It's like 2 minutes of this. And then this is the part where it goes to the background behind him becomes this beautiful vista of Hyrule in the Breath of the Wild style. And there is a man on a horse in the distance, but otherwise it is just like grass and mountains and stuff. And he's talking about like those mountains over there, Link can get to them if he just walks long enough, and that like all of this is going to be about discovery and like emergent gameplay and all this kind of stuff, and then he takes a second to say something in English, where he's talking about it's a peaceful vista, and it's a thing about Zelda that it's a peaceful world until like a big monster comes through, and then he speaks English, and in English he says that that's one convention that we aren't going to subvert. And then he kind of like fades away, and this is when a guardian comes running around the corner, and it's our first look at this insane octopus machine thing, and we realize now that the man on the horse is Link, or a Link-like figure, and it's like the cinematic thing where it chases him like towards like a body of water, and he's riding a horse, and Link like blasts it with a bomb arrow, and then like jumps off the horse, and this Link is hooded and like sort of shrouded. Link throws off the shroud. We can see that like he's wearing blue. He doesn't look like Link looks. His hair is wild. Whips out an ancient arrow, which like flips out like it's an Inspector Gadget weapon, and then like fires it, and that's the end of the trailer. And we don't know the name of the thing. We don't have any real sense. All we have are these promises that it's going to be all about discovery and exploration, and it's going to be more like the original Zelda than anything else. And that's it. And then, of course, the questions around like, what's this machine octopus thing? But that just like that's it. It was a 3.5 minute trailer where we see almost none of the game, and it's the thing that sort of like kicks us off and to be like, here's what you can be excited about for the next 3 years before the game comes out.
I totally forgot about like the preamble, because I remember the Guardian attack and Link on horseback and Link being hooded, and I remember not knowing, because I remember the debate after this trailer was like, was that Link?
Well, and
is it like female Link?
Right.
Like, is that, you know what I mean? Like,
and Aonuma played into that at the time, was like, no one explicitly said that was Link, but he's just, because he knows anything he says during this time is gonna like get attention. So, but yeah, there was like a whole build up to it, and it's amazingly, it's that kind of talk that is totally validated by the final product, right? Like, he wasn't. If you go to any video game where they're talking about it 3 years before it comes out, they are telling you some lies about what the game is going to be, right?
Yeah.
And he tells no lies in this trailer. Yeah. It's incredible.
That is pretty incredible. Yeah, that's really cool. I totally forgot about that.
We get a little bit more of the game at the Game Awards.
I remember
a couple months later.
That was Aonuma and like Miyamoto. They were
sitting,
that's right. And there was like a TV. Yeah, and they're like playing some of the game.
I mean, one of the cool things that they do show in that is this is obviously when it's still just a Wii U game, and they're showing like the map of Hyrule on the gamepad and like zooming in on it, and they're like, oh, and you could even zoom out, and like they show an early version of like the world map on the gamepad, and it's just a little slice of like, oh, what could have been. Like, not that I really want to mourn the Wii U anymore, it's done, But like, oh yeah, I always like it when you have like a map on the screen below you. But in the final release, even though the game did come out on Wii U, there's no map that you can
Oh,
access
interesting.
on the gamepad. Just goes dark. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's interesting. So now jump to January 2017. We are seeing the January Nintendo Switch reveal. So this is the first time we're learning about Joy-Con. This
yeah,
is the first time we're learning about HD Rumble. This is that time where Suda51 has this like weird long rambling
yep.
thing that reveals that there's going to be like a new Travis game. EA is there to talk about something. FIFA maybe.
We hear about 1-2 Switch for the
Yeah,
first time.
that's right. So like a lot of information, but we know that Breath of the Wild is, we've seen Breath of the Wild at E3 the year before.
Right.
We know that it's coming. But do we know that it's coming in March at this point?
We don't have any idea.
Oh, you're right, because we don't know the release date for
Right.
Switch, and all of that is being dropped right now.
Right.
And so then they play this like 3-minute, 49-second trailer.
This is the story trailer,
for
right?
Breath of the Wild. The story trailer in like the loosest form possible.
Right.
Because the first, I would say maybe 45 minutes or seconds of it are just like a little bit of music, and you're just seeing vistas, the different kind of like biomes. It's snowy, desert, you
Yeah.
know, like with some creatures in it, but like otherwise nothing. But the part for me, and and then there starts being like some dialogue. It's all out of context, like but you're seeing like this is all stuff that we got basically none of this for Tears of the Kingdom, right?
Right.
Like you're seeing the champions. You don't understand what it means, but you're seeing the champions. You're seeing, like parts of the divine beasts and like inside the divine beasts. You're seeing like all these different like snippets that are, painting a picture. The like King of Hyrule, you're getting voiceover being like, you have to protect my daughter, like all this kind of stuff. And then there's a moment from the memory where like Zelda is crying and like hugs
Right.
Link, and then like the game kind of it like goes quiet, and then there's this 20 seconds at the end of this trailer, or towards the end of this trailer, that is pretty transcendent. It is an orchestrated like version of the Zelda theme, that the key changes just keep making it like more and more
Yeah.
epic, and like the music is so beautiful. You're getting a look at like Breath of the Wild. Like it feels so, it's kind of like overwhelmingly sums up what it made me so excited for Breath of the Wild. And it made me, and watching it again today, it's really funny. You can see on YouTube, like when you're scrolling,
Oh yeah, places
like
that
a
have been
heat
like
map basically,
yeah, exactly.
where it's been like most watched, and those 20 seconds is just like off the chart compared to everything else in the video.
Yeah.
That is the part that like everybody jumps to,
Just when they need to feel something.
yeah, and just like watching it again, I urge you to go find this trailer. It's the Breath of the Wild January 2017 Nintendo Switch presentation trailer, and find those 20 seconds about like 3/4 of the way through the video. And I realized as I was watching it multiple times today, getting ready for this, that that is what, like maybe like a month ago, I had been talking about how I was missing something from the Tears of the Kingdom
Right.
marketing, and I couldn't like really put a finger on it. Like I'm excited for Tears of the Kingdom. I had zero doubt it was going to be an amazing game, but there was
Right.
like something I was missing from it. And I realized today, it's so silly, but it's like I was missing those 20 seconds.
Yeah.
There has been no equivalent for Tears of the Kingdom, and it was I I love this moment from the Breath of the Wild trailer. Do you know what it reminded me of? Kind of is do you remember, maybe it was the final trailer for Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, and they had like a specially like orchestrated version of the Force theme?
Yeah.
It was so good, and it was edited
so
together like
good,
so well.
yes.
Like it was such a good
Not
trailer.
a piece of music that's in the movie.
No, not at all. It was made just for the trailer, and I don't think
Sure.
the Zelda reveal trailer music made it into the game either. But and I've really disliked Rise of Skywalker, but that trailer is still absolutely amazing
Right.
and got more emotion out of me than, like anything in the movie did by far.
Even realizing that Chewbacca was in the other transport?
But a similar emotion is watching those 20 seconds. It's really just like it's really beautiful, and I love this trailer so much. And that's what it's totally silly, but that's what I realized today is missing for me from Tears of the Kingdom, is that sort of
Yeah.
like moment.
It's also, and we're not going to get like another big marketing beat for Tears of the Kingdom, so I think that its opportunity for that kind of moment has passed. But it's also like it's worth pointing out that moment comes at the end of this like hour-long presentation all about the Switch, and is like the lead up to them announcing the release date of both the Switch and Breath of the Wild, right? Like and that would be a month and change from that date. Like really we're as close now to the release of Tears of the Kingdom as we were then to the release of Breath of the Wild. And so like just like right on top of it. And it's just like it's all built to this like beautiful crescendo. It is the portals opening and Sam Wilson being all on your left, right? Like we're there. We are to the pinnacle. We are so charged up. And then there's this amazing bum 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 bum. Like we're just ready to be excited about it. And it's an amazing moment in and of itself.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
All right, very good. Man, Breath of the Wild, what a great game. I can't believe I just like got like moved and excited about a game that I stopped playing like 5 years ago. So we sort of reversed order in that one. Mark, would you like to give your final?
Sure, yeah. So my final one is actually for Skyward Sword. And this is one that I am glad that I went back to, only because at the time, and I guess you could argue it's still kind of weird, but now I understand the context of why it played out the way that it did instead of differently. But the one that I want to call out for Skyward Sword is the 2009 E3 reveal of Skyward Sword, we'll call it. So basically, the way that this went down is that Nintendo had their E3 2009 presentation, which was
Was this the one that we talked about, or one that we talked about when we did our classic E3? Those were 3 years ago now.
Right? Yeah, I can't remember, but my memory of E3 2009 right now is just that I can't remember what they showed off. Is it possible that it was like the Wii Music one, or one
right
where,
or was it like the 3DS
or
reveal one?
I don't.
It's
think
still too
so.
early
I
for
think it was
that.
like Wii Sports Resort, like
Sure.
that sort of thing. Where
Yeah.
like kind of, my memory is that it was kind of like the awkward E3s that Nintendo was having during the Wii era.
Right.
And there's no mention of Zelda anything during this. But after their presentation, they have a post-presentation like roundtable discussion with journalists.
Oh.
And it's Shigeru Miyamoto is there, and as part of the roundtable discussion, he shows off a piece of art for an upcoming Legend of Zelda game, and it's like Link standing with a shield. He has no master sword,
right.
and then his like back is turned, and he's standing with his like head to the side, so you can see his face in profile. And then in front of him is what we now know as Fi from Skyward Sword, like the personification of the Master Sword.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, nobody knew, and just kind of looked like, this is what 1UP described it as. A short girl in a long robe stood in full view at Link's back, wearing a crystal necklace and emanating a blue aura. She gave off an otherworldly look akin to Zora from Ocarina of Time. And so nobody knew what this was, right? Like, the only thing we really knew is that, again, this is from the 1UP.com article, the title will definitely use the recently released Wii Motion Plus, and depending on the popularity of the controller, it may even require the peripheral. Again, it turns out that the Wii Motion Plus would be very important for Skyward Sword. But
well, I mean, it would require it, but even though it was not popular.
Right, yeah. And then IGN's write-up It says Kotaku has procured the image, which as usual raises more questions than it answers. Will Link be, as Mr. Miyamoto pointed out regarding this image, without his trusty Master Sword? Perhaps not. Eagle-eyed Zelda fans have noticed that while Link himself is not carrying a sword in his hand in the picture, the ethereal female creature joining him in the image bears a remarkable resemblance to the classic Master Sword design. If the rumors are right on the connections being made, we now face even more questions than ever before. If Link has no sword and this fairy-like creature joining him uh, us as is a substitute for the Master Sword, how could this possibly work in the intense battles that Link will surely face in his new quest? Is it possible that the next Zelda will not have traditional sword battles at all, and instead this girl will somehow act as your offensive force, or will she instead be a personification of the Master Sword, something that changes into a blade at will? Will she talk to Link on his journey, or are her eyes closed for a reason? And this being the first Zelda game made specifically and exclusively for the Wii, what could it be about a living sword that might inspire Nintendo to choose such an approach for taking full advantage of the Wii's motion controls? But I just
Kind of nailing it at the
yeah,
end
yeah,
there.
yeah, for sure.
Weird how everyone's obsessed with the gender of this sword.
I just, but I remember as a Nintendo fan, watching Nintendo's E3 2009 presentation and then reading these write-ups later and just being like, why was this not part of like the presentation?
Right.
Why was it in this like weird round table after the fact? And there's like this image that at the time, like, I guess Kotaku found it, but like you couldn't necessarily see it, and so you're just like reading these descriptions. It just all seemed like so weird and off kilter, and you're like, what is going on?
Well, it's like another moment of like Nintendo adjusting to what their PR machine had been doing before, right? Like they're coming off of the release and like successful couple years of the Wii, and like at this point they had figured out how to market things like Wii Sports, Wii Sports Resort, Wii Play, all this stuff, and maybe it was becoming trickier for them to like introduce a Zelda game now, like. They're doing all of this like the blue ocean strategy of like getting everyone to play, and then they're like, oh yeah, and I guess we're still working on a Zelda game too.
And they didn't, and I guess like going back to it now, I'm a little more sympathetic where it's like, oh yeah, they didn't have anything. They didn't have anything to show.
Sure.
Like it was the following year, E3 2010, where they would do a gameplay demo, which we just talked about when you were talking about Wind Waker, like was really rough and is not like a great example of Skyward Sword. And this was another one that originally was aiming for a 2010 release, but would eventually get delayed until 2011. But it's just a Zelda reveal that always stood out in my mind for how atypical and like unusual and almost like fumbled the rollout felt.
Right. That they were putting together E3, and then Miyamoto was like, well, we have a poster. Like, no, leave the poster at home. I'm gonna bring it just in case. That's a good one. Mark, I'm gonna cheat a little bit with my final because I want to talk about the sort of abbreviated PR rollout for The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening, the remake on Switch. It was revealed originally in a February Nintendo Direct, February 2019, and it's just in the middle of a Direct with like other stuff happening, and it starts with a recreation of the opening of that game in like an anime style, and it's a storm at sea, and we don't see that it's Link for a little while. It starts with like bubbles coming up from the ocean. And so it does a really nice job of like making you ask, like, what is this? What are we seeing? And by the time we get like a full view of Link, it's still like Link in an animated style. He's still being, drawn like anime. We don't know what this game is going to look like yet. And it cuts to a artistic rendering of the mountain on Koholint Island and the windfish egg, and Link kind of like washed up on shore, and we're still not seeing the Wind Waker style, right? The style of the remake, but the music kicks in, and the music in the Link's Awakening remake is so specific and so cool. I love it to death. It's this very small ensemble where like you can hear like 4 or 5 instruments max at any given time, and you can there's no string section. You hear a cello, and it's just this beautiful clarity, and we're hearing that. So like we're like, okay, this is Link's Awakening, great. Two, it sounds this way, and then bam, it looks like a Rankin Bass stop motion animation cartoon. Was one of those like Nintendo Direct moments where it was like, oh my god, like here's a genuine surprise, even from something where it's like this is a remake of a thing, which is already like a fun little like, oh, it's something familiar and something novel at the same time. But then it just so I do you remember like your reaction to seeing that art style for the first time?
I don't. I
It's
don't really.
it just I just remember like it's stopping me like cold for a second, just being like, oh my, like look at this thing, it's nuts. Which you know, the rest of the trailer plays out in sort of like unsurprising ways. Um, but then I just wanted to kind of tie that to, well, so the trailer ends with 2019, right? So the same year that it was revealed, it would come out in like October or something. But in the interim, you and I got to go to E3, and we played it on the show floor, and they had the coolest like diorama thing where it was like a 3D model of like the Koholint village and like just some of the surrounding area. And it was just so like immersive and cool and fun to
That was
see it.
so cool. I wonder what ended up happening to that model.
Yeah.
I hope they kept it somewhere because it is really cool.
It was really, really cool. We got little Link keychains. I still use mine today. Do you still have your keychain?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. It's just so like the whole rollout for that thing. And like, you know, I know no, at the end of the day the game is still Link's Awakening. So it has like, you know, whatever faults that game has. The dungeons, especially later in the game, get kind of grindy. But like it's just a beautiful remake of a beautiful game, and I loved every second of playing it. And the audio-visual experience of having to advertise to me and then playing it were just like always perfect. So that's one of my absolute favorite, just like Zelda marketing
So
beats.
cool.
All right, so those are our favorite moments from how Zelda was sold to us. If you would like to share any of yours, you can email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com, or you should get in the Discord, where I'm sure we'll be talking about this tomorrow. Okay, Mark, let's close this out. That is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. We want to extend a special thank you to our 16-bit patron, Connor McCabe. Thank you, Connor. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MK Mitchell, and the show is at NinCart Society. Get in that Discord if you haven't already. Anthony DeLuca made our logo, and our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying thank you for listening.